So I wanted to take a little bit of time today to discuss a trend, a situation that seems to be progressively growing in our communities, in our towns, in our states, and that is making sure our kids are getting the protection that they need from the adults involved in their lives. Oftentimes we have ran into situations where our students are reporting neglect or abuse, basic needs that aren't being met by the people, adults in their homes. So what I want to do is take a little bit of time today and kind of go over what we need to know basically to help our districts be better informed about abuse and neglect in homes. So we need to know a couple of things, and that's if we suspect child abuse or neglect in any form, in any way, we as teachers are mandated reporters. Some of the things that we need to know about child abuse are that it can be anything from a physical injury to an emotional injury that causes the child's behavior to change, the child's education to be affected. We need to make sure that as mandated reporters, we are finding clues that would lead to an investigation. It's not our job to investigate, but it would at least allow some opportunities for people to look into what's going on in the home. A couple of things that you need to be aware of is that it needs to be needs to be verified by a repeated occurrence, or that they might have a couple of symptoms or indicators, like behavioral and physical indicators that something's going on at home. An appearance of suspicious serious injury, like it just came out of nowhere. Those are some things that as a school administrator and the state need to be aware of. All of this information can be found at the DCEF website for Kansas. Some things that you need to know is when the kids come and visit with you, because teachers have a very unique connection with students. They're involved with their lives 7 to 8 hours of the day, and we have an opportunity to get really close with them. And because of that closeness, we need to let them know that it's okay that they tell us what they need to tell us and that it's a safe place. We need to respect the privacy of the child involved. That's when our confidentiality as teachers comes into play. We need to make sure that all we are doing is getting base details. There's going to be an investigation at a later time. Don't push for information that you don't need to know to make the child uncomfortable or the situation get out of hand. But just tell the child that you are going to find somebody who can help them. The physical neglect, as opposed to the abuse side of it, is harm to a child. Likely it's through the omission of something. Parents and guardians have the responsibility to care for that child and their basic needs of food, clothing, shelter. And if one of those pieces is missing out, or the parent is failing to accommodate those basic needs, this is where you need to go ahead and get a hold of, again, your school contact or DCF directly, and let them know that the child is sustaining pain or suffering through neglect. Lack of supervision is kind of an area in which we need to keep our eyes open. Oftentimes at our local playground, we will have kids dismissed from school at 3:05, and they are out there until about 3:45, 3:50 without adult supervision. And some of those kiddos are as young as first grade. So those are some things that we need to be aware of, and if we have questions about whether or not being on the playground for 45 minutes without adult supervision is neglect, you can always, like I said, get a hold of DCF or talk to your administrator. right away. We need to know a few things as teachers as we kind of focus in on this topic, is that we are mandated reporters. 49 states out of the 50 require that teachers report suspected child abuse. Now, please know I use the word suspected intentionally. You don't have to have evidence. It's not our job to find that out. But if you suspect that a child is being abused or neglected, 49 states out of the 50 require that teachers report that. Report it in good faith, meaning not malicious or with any ill intent, but that you are coming with evidence that you feel is of honest information. In most cases, teachers are not liable, so that's something that can reassure you if you have a fear of letting an adult or administrator know a child is in danger. Teachers are not liable. However, if we don't report an incident or we don't report something that we suspect is happening in the home, it can be a misdemeanor, which can include a $1,000 fine, 6 months in jail. It just really depends. So there's some severity in not reporting. So make sure that you're not looking for evidence before you report. Err on the side of caution and make that report. Like I said earlier, we're in a unique situation. We daily interact with these kids for 7 to 8 hours. And sometimes we are the only ones who are looking, who are watching, and who are asking questions about what's going on in their home. Couple of our building procedures include contacting our building principal, as well as our case manager, and then our school counselor. I put all 3 names on there because our school situation, we share a principal with another school who's 5 miles away. And so to get him in our building when a situation is happening or occurring is I won't say rare, but it's a possibility he's not available. So then we would go into our counselor, Susan Manus, or we'd visit with our school case manager at the time. We do have 2 lead teachers in the building, so they are also resources for us. But we need to make sure that if we are suspecting abuse and neglect, that we are reporting it to somebody in our local immediately. I went ahead and provided the state information here for Kansas. I think it's important to understand that we as teachers can report to our building administrators, and then they can follow some of these steps. They can make a phone call, they can email, they can mail, they can go ahead and go online and do some information. But any of those methods are appropriate methods if you are suspecting neglect or abuse. There's hotline numbers that you can get directly, and in fact, it's okay to go ahead and share those at staff meetings, so that way the teachers they have it available by their phones, or they can save it into their smartphone and text or do whatever they need to do. Here's some things that I think educators aren't necessarily always talking about, but I think it's important for them to know, is that we can advocate for safety of our students, whether that's contacting our policymakers or our school board, or advocating just at parent-teacher conferences for the safety of our students. We can volunteer. We can start programs in our communities or in our schools that are educating parents or caregivers of appropriate techniques and behaviors. We need to educate our kids. Let them know what is or isn't appropriate, what is or isn't right according to the laws, so that way they're aware of what they can talk about, what they can share with us, and what is going to keep them ultimately safe. The last thing I can add in this with how we can help is that we strengthen our families through support. Get them involved in our schools, get them involved in understanding what it is that the school is trying to do, which is to educate our kids into the next generation. So I really think this is an important topic for us to share, not only with our staff, but also with our parents in our community. Thank you guys very much for taking the time to listen to this information, and I hope that you can glean something from it and take this into your communities and schools.